What is up, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm Jacob Turner. He's Andrew Jones. As you can tell, AJ is in Kenan Stadium following Carolina's spring game. I was there earlier on the field doing, man. Cleared out quickly. Beautiful little sunset over there in Chapel Hill right now as well. Recording this one about 6:45 in the evening. I came home after the spring game. I was on the field doing photo and video, so I was there. Not there anymore, obviously, but we did put a highlights video out, just went live about 5 minutes before this video. We started recording this video, so it'll be out a couple hours before this comes out. So go check that out. Offense and defense, just some of the top plays, about an 8-9 minute video. So a ton of reps in there. If you guys want to see the highlights or weren't able to make it over to Chapel Hill today, go definitely check that one out after this one. But AJ, this pod's going to be focused on kind of what can you take away from the spring game? It's kind of something that we joke about in the media a lot, that you can get burnt a little bit in spring by things you hear from the program, things you kind of see during spring. Oh, so-and-so's doing really well, and then the season comes along and he plays three snaps the whole year, and it's like, okay, well, that wasn't as true as maybe as we thought it was. So we're going to focus more on this pod, obviously talk a little about the spring game, but what you can actually kind of take away from a spring game and spring as a whole. So, AJ, let's start with that. I mean, what did you take away from today's game? What can you take away from what you saw out there today for that hour and a half that Carolina practiced and, about the hour that they scrimmaged?
Can is the operative word there. Mm-hmm. I will go back to my days when I covered the whole league and the region, and I remember covering NC State's spring game the spring after Russell Wilson redshirted. Mm-hmm. And there were 4 quarterbacks vying for the job, and the big thing was, hey, all 4, Tom O'Brien was going to play all 4. Let's see who looks the best. And Harrison Beck, people might remember him. I think Harrison Beck looked like the best quarterback that day. Mm-hmm. If you would have rated him that afternoon, and we did it, Russell Wilson was 4th.
Oh, wow.
And look how that turned out. I remember writing a story here one time, I can't remember the dude's name, where some walk-on running back had like 130 yards rushing in the spring game. And I swear to you, his name in zero capacity, no capacity, ever came up again. That's why can is the operative word. What can you take away from this? Well, you take some stuff away at quarterback. Mm-hmm. I took away some stuff about Davion Goss and also Darwin Barlow, the 2 new running backs.
Yeah, they look solid.
The other one, the kid from Southern Cal. I watched Howard Sampson, the offensive tackle from North Texas. I didn't watch the ball a lot of the time. I watched him for a while, so I had some thoughts about him I could share. Defensively, I watched some of the new guys. I watched the swarm. I looked for the disguising and blitzing, and you could see it's a lot more active. You could see where Travis Shaw, A, was with the blue team, so he started, and B, definitely showed some signs of looking like the guy that we've heard from everybody that he is. By and large, though, other than that, it's hard to judge quarterbacks when you've got Kobe Paysour and J.J. Jones and Gavin Blackwell and Bryson Nesbitt and John Copenhaver and Jake Johnson all unavailable. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of hard to do that. When they're weaving in offensive alignments, they didn't play Power Echols but a few snaps. Omarion didn't play at all outside of Thud because they went Thud for about 15 to 20 snaps, and then they went live, but no contact on the quarterback. So you have to take a lot of stuff with a grain of salt. When you walk away and say, man, Curtis Simpson looked really good at rush, which is the formerly known as Jack, which was formerly known as hybrid. You don't lean too heavily on that. Curtis, I think, is going to be a nice player one day. I'm just using that as an example. So there are some things you can take away, and with as many as these things as I've covered, I took some stuff away from today. But most of what happened out there, it was just another day, and doesn't really mean a whole lot for my eyes. The coaching staff will view it differently because they get into the intricacies of things. They have decisions to make. I don't have those decisions to make.
Yeah, it's interesting because I went to the game today with my dad. I was on the field working, but my dad was up in the stands, and we just rode in together. And he actually was joking. He was joking when he said it, but there is some truth in it, like any good joke. He was like, you and AJ should do a segment on the show in your podcast afterwards where you talk about who was the most impressive guy that you'll never hear their name again. And I was like, that's just kind of spring for you right there. Because I've been doing this 5 years.
Major Bird.
Yeah, and he was the number one guy. And it is no disrespect to him. I thought he looked really good today.
He looked great in practice last week.
Yeah, but when you look at the
his number wasn't even the roster. We're all scrambling. Who's that guy? He just ran 60 yards for a touchdown.
He was our pick because he was really good today. His name was all over the place. But again, you see that every spring, especially the spring game, where there's just a couple guys that look really good, and you're like, maybe they'll kind of rotate their way or work their way into the rotation when the season starts, and they never play. So I thought that was funny because there is some truth in that. But yeah, in terms of what I looked at today, AJ, and we're going to do a separate pod on the quarterbacks that we'll either put out. I guess we'll probably put it out on Sunday, maybe Monday night. We haven't discussed that yet. We'll do a little separate, shorter pod on the quarterback position because I do think there is a major question mark still around there. Because while I thought Connor Harrell looked really good at times today, I thought Mac Johnson did some okay things at times. Heck, I thought Michael Merdinger at times made some nice throws. That's still a position that I don't think anybody, even based on Mac's comments earlier this week during his earlier press conference this week, were interesting around the quarterback position too. So I don't know what the confidence level is there, but we'll talk about that a little later on. But again, I thought defensively, that was the thing that I was looking at the most because there's a lot of returning guys. I know some of those returning guys didn't necessarily play a ton of snaps, but the new defensive coordinator, I was watching him, Jeff Collins, early in the practice, and he was very hands-on, very loud, very kind of, I don't know if no nonsense is the right word, but it probably is the best way to describe him. I think there is, but I say no nonsense, but I also look at it and say, he seems like a guy that you'd want to play for. I mean, he just has that effect in the few times that I've seen him. So I was really watching that defense as a whole and trying to see, can I notice any maybe progress that's been made here? Travis Shaw running with the ones. That, for me, seems like a positive for this team because the D-line's been a problem for a while now, AJ. Why not throw a guy like that in there who looks the part and seems, from what we've been hearing this offseason, maybe maturing off the field a little bit more as well, and that's translating in practice. So what did you take away? I'm not going to ask you that. What can you take away from the defense as a whole day? Is there anything you kind of saw where you're like, ooh, I kind of like that, and that might translate into the season a little bit?
Well, I can, and I did. Regarding Travis, they have used many forms of motivation with him to get him to this point. And so they're not going to reward him with a starting role today if he hadn't earned it.
Yeah.
Because he's that guy that you got to keep motivating. He's been that guy since he got here. Got to motivate him here. Travis has different buttons. You got to figure them out and then motivate him uniquely because he's a unique individual. And so I think that him being out there was a very positive sign. Also, another thing, he got dinged up later in the game. He went off the field. I saw his shoulder slouched over, hit the ground, and they were looking at his right shoulder. I saw him after the game walk off the field, and he was fine. Mm-hmm. Travis, his game has had to mature just like he's had to mature. Power Echols talking about how much Travis has matured to. Javari Ritchie outright saying, I am so proud of him. That, to me, I think is the biggest positive story of the spring. And we'll get into a bunch of postscript spring stuff here in the next couple of days, but I saw enough today that leads me to believe that they're not BSing us. Mm-hmm. He made some nice plays. He was harder to block. He played lower, got off the ball quickly, shot off the snap. Those are things you wanted to see. Mm-hmm. As far as the scheme and everything goes, there were parts moving that sort of came from nowhere. If you're just looking at the game and not focusing on anything specific and allowing your eyes to take you where they're drawn, which I did, especially when looking at the defense because I wanted to see what popped, what stood out to me. There was like movement, darting, almost like shooting stars. Mm-hmm. You're driving along, you look up and say, holy crap, you see that? Mm-hmm. Well, that were guys blitzing, guys showing blitz, pulling off. That was some uniqueness, some of the chaos that Jeff Collins has talked about. So I saw that. So it caught my attention when I wasn't looking for that specifically. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a really good sign. It means what it does, it backs up what we've been told. I'd like to see things in the spring that back up what we've been told for the month leading up to the spring game. So with Travis Shaw, yes. With the disguising and blitzing, yes. Those two things I think are very important. It shows that they're different. The other thing is the rush, which used to be the jack, lines up as an upright defensive end almost all the time. Mm-hmm. So he's not back as more an outside linebacker. I think the rush is more defensive end than he is outside linebacker in a lot of ways. I thought the star position had an element of outside linebacker to it. Now, I don't have the benefit of watching tape because it wasn't on TV, and I'm trying to look for a lot of stuff. So I didn't look a lot at the star position, but the rush position definitely stood out to me as well. So those are three things defensively that jumped out. And a couple other things. I thought Tyrone Stewart, the junior college transfer from East Mississippi Junior College, I thought he looked really quick. Huzzy back at corner. You got a chance to have some pretty good corners because remember Marcus Allen will be back in the fall, and pretty good at safety. If they can cause problems up front and they could create issues and complications with the opponent's offensive line with blocking and people helping, tight ends chipping and that kind of thing, that will allow this secondary, I think, to be more effective than it's been. This stuff is all connected, and I thought we saw some pretty interesting things today that lead me to believe that what we're being told so far is in the process of happening. Now, Max says they're going to be really good defensively. I don't know. I'll believe that when I see it.
Yeah,
I don't think the program is at a point where you just anoint something that hasn't been there yet. So same thing with the offensive line, same thing with these quarterbacks. Got to wait and see. But I do think that I got to feel that the defense is in a better position now than it's been any time in the last several years.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. And just to add something on the defense real quick, one of my most, you probably, the press box is enclosed, so you wouldn't have heard this, but I was on the field and you remember the Will Hardy pick six that he had against Merdinger? I was sitting beside John Bowman, inside Carolina, been there for a while. Shout out John, really nice guy. We were sitting together on the field doing video, and yeah, big baseball guy. And I'm sitting there, and before the snap, I hear what I thought at the time was Jeff Collins, and John, we both thought it was Jeff Collins. I can't 100% confirm, but it sounded like him. And he used a couple of expletives in there, but all you hear is Jeff Collins yelling out, "No short passes, no effing short passes." Right before the snap, he's yelling it loud as he can. Yeah. And Will Hardy steps up, and that was, with what was a short pass to the outside, steps up right in the lane, beautiful pick, takes it to the house. And you're like, okay, that's a positive. I like that. I like granted, it's very hard to do that in a game when there's 60,000 people in the stands. It's loud in there. But for me, that was a positive of guys listening to what is being told, like, hey, do not let any short passes. And, Will Hardy takes a pick six to the house. And you're like, okay, I like that. So that was one of the big positives I took from the defense, because you could tangibly see that the coach telling, we do not allow this. And a player like Will Hardy, who's impressive, was in a yellow jersey, so wasn't full contact today, makes a really good play on the ball and, again, scores on it. So that was one of my major takeaways from the defense. I thought that was impressive, and that was impressive to see from Jeff Collins as well. My
takeaway on that, Jacob, is what Jeff Collins was saying. I think that might be the biggest departure from what we saw before, because Gene was very conservative. Keep everything in front of you.
Yeah. I don't think
that wasn't an issue. Yeah. That play was not an issue of keeping everything in front of you. Will Hardy saw the ball. He broke for the ball. He got the ball, and he scored. Before, you don't want to give up the catastrophic. So you're so hell-bent on not giving up. And I'm not being critical of Gene. It's just, I think the way offenses work now, it's harder to play that. You have to be able to turn people over. If you're going to give up scores and give up chunks, and you're going to be 116th in the nation in allowing first downs accumulated by opposing offenses, one way to not allow first downs is to get that damn ball yourself. And this program has talked about forcing turnovers, creating game-changing plays on defense, and they haven't been doing it. They increased their turnover output a little bit last year, but it still wasn't great, and they're not scoring off of turnovers. I thought that's a great point by you. That's actually very cool that you said that, and that is right there the difference in the creating chaos and the more aggressive approach, as opposed to, well, let's put a wall here and not let them get over, instead of let's just take our wall and attack and force them to make mistakes. I think there's something to say for both approaches, but I think this fan base needs to see the Collins approach. Yeah. They need to see that. Go for the damn ball. If you get it and get a pick six, you might get beat a few times. You give up 15, 20-yard gains, but the risk-reward mentality of this defense and this approach to playing defense, I think, is refreshing, and I think the fans are going to appreciate it more than what they've had the last few years.
Yeah, completely agree with that. Flipping over the offense real quick, we're going to do a separate prod on quarterback, so we won't talk about them right now. We talked a little bit about the running backs with some guys who impressed. Obviously, Hampton didn't play a lot. But for me, my big takeaway from today, and I tweeted out about it a lot, and I know you were full of praise with him in the spring and the staff as well, Jordan Shipp, man. I mean, I tweeted out, I'm like, I don't know if his game is necessarily the same as Tez Walker's. I think there is differences there. But I'm looking at him, and I'm like, I mean, there's your replacement right there as a guy who I think can step in and play a big role in this team. I mean, true freshman, he doesn't look like a true freshman out there first and foremost, but there was a couple of catches he made today where I don't know if this is going to make sense, but it was veteran type catches. It was almost like toying with the guy, like give me the ball and kind of looking at him like you can't guard me type of stuff. There was one play you'll see in my highlight video, and I know you saw it, going towards the football center end zone. And he catches it maybe on the 20, 30-yard line, right on the sideline. And the defender kind of falls on the ground, and he's got the ball up here, and he's just looking at the guy like, you can't defend me. And that, for me, was super impressive. And he made a lot of plays out there today and looked really good. So I thought Jordan Shipp was really impressive as a guy kind of getting that first glimpse. I think he's somebody, because obviously this pod is what can you take away. From looking at him today, I don't know how much he'll play, but I'm saying he looks like a guy that can play. When the season comes around, it should be out there on the field in some way, shape, or form. So I was impressed with him. And he was probably, I thought, younger wide receivers out there looked pretty good. There was a few guys that you could name that I thought did some nice things today. Thought Nate McCullum, a veteran, looked good today with some catches that he had. But overall, I think my biggest takeaway from off the offensive side of the ball is there's still some question marks at quarterback. We'll talk about that in a separate pod. But I thought those skill positions, I think Carolina's pretty set in those positions. The question then shifts again, AJ. We've been talking about it since, for 5 years, it feels like, since Mac Brown came in. What is this offensive line going to look like? And I don't know if I can take any really take any major takeaways from the offensive line today. I didn't necessarily think they looked bad. I didn't necessarily think they looked good. I just think in a spring game, you're not really going to know what that group is really going to be like. So still some marks there for me, but I think most people will agree with that.
Yeah, remind me to hit on the O-line, because I actually watched a lot of those guys individually. I'm a big O-line.
Yeah, you're big on the O-line. Yeah.
Big on the O-line. So Jordan Shipp, absolutely. I think he's bigger than Tez Walker.
I know. He does not look like a freshman.
He actually looks like what we all thought Andre Green would be.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. Yeah.
And his touchdown catch in the end zone where he had to battle a defender and he had to turn back and go backwards, catch the ball, hold on to it, concentrate, looked like he'd done it at this level 1,000 times. And he was going against, I think, the blue team at the time. He had some stuff. Well, it wasn't Huzzy or Stewart. I think it may have been Ty Adams over there, but he still made the play, the concentration, and he's got wide receiver moxie. You alluded to that a second ago, where he just looks at the guy like, you can't handle me. You want that at wide receiver. That's part of the position. And he's got that. I think Alex Taylor's a guy that's going to help him. Vari Green had a touchdown. Vari Green is super fast. His dad played in the NFL, but Vari's also a big-time baseball player. You might see him play on the baseball Tar Heels next year.
Interesting.
But Jordan Shipp's going to play. He's ready. He came in college ready. He's going to play. Another guy on offense, a true freshman that came in college ready and is going to play too, with Davion Goss, running back.
Yeah.
Davion Goss is the next star. Omarion goes to the NFL after next year. I think Davion Goss steps in. And I foresee, unless there are an injury or something that we can't project, I think he's going to be a 1,000-yard type guy in college. Maybe
I can see it.
And I think he can catch passes. I think he could already pass block. I talked to him in February, and he was telling me that he could pass block because where he went to high school, Chaminade Madonna, down there in the Miami area. He's from Opelika. So in that area, Chaminade Madonna is one of the best programs in the country. It's almost like a college program with their training. So he came in physically ready. He had to pass block a ton. He had 8 carries in the state championship. They won by like 40 points. He didn't have to play a ton, but he had to pass block or they wouldn't play him. And he played all 4 years, and he came in here ready to pass block. So the good thing is you could put him in the game. You don't have to kind of give away part of what you're either doing or not doing because he's out there. A lot of times when you put a freshman or even a sophomore out there, you're giving something away a little bit because you can't run the full playbook with them out there. I think when they go to Minnesota August 28th, when he's in the game, I think they can run the full playbook. I also like Darwin Barlow. Said he's learning how to run A gap to A gap at Carolina with their inside runs. He said at Southern Cal it was wide tackle to wide tackle, so there was more room. So he's learning how to run inside, and he had a touchdown run today, running off the A gap on the right side, and it was a nice looking run. So I think they're in pretty good shape there as long as there's no injuries. I think they've got some stuff, and I saw the stuff today with a couple of these guys that I saw a little bit of in practice and that we've been told. Mm-hmm. So as far as the O-line goes, I watched Howard Sampson a lot, Jacob.
Big guy.
He's the
really big dude.
He's enormous. He's the guy from North Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And people, I've asked, God, I wish I had a $100 bill for every time I've been asked, why would they bring in a guy who played like 40 snaps at North Texas? And why is he starting now? Well, I don't know. I don't know what happened in North Texas. I know he was dinged up a little bit. I can't speak for that, but I can speak for what I see now. He's got tools. He's got very coachable tools. You can't coach size, but you can coach size to do the right things. And I asked Mac the other day, I said, what has surprised you about him? As he came in from North Texas, he barely got on the field with him last year. What has surprised you? And he said he's quick. He's got quick feet. Mm-hmm. And that's what moved him up the pipeline real fast. So I'm watching his feet today. He's got quick feet. Mm-hmm. He's a guy that should be able to, he should turn into a very good pass protector. I don't think he's that guy yet, but he should turn into that because he's got pretty good balance and his feet were quick. He was quick off the snap. There was an edge rush he picked up. The play ended up going the other direction, but I liked what I saw from him. I don't know what the hell happened in North Texas. But at least based on what I've seen in practice, people said, and what I saw today in the spring game, he looks like he's North Carolina worthy. There's no doubt about that. I also watched Malik McGowan. They did not start Jonathan Adorno at the right guard. They put Willie Lampkin there, moved him from the left side, and Malik McGowan started at the left guard. Otherwise, the offense had been Lampkin at left guard, Adorno at right guard, the whole all spring practice up until the last one I saw. So I thought that was interesting. We've been told that Malik McGowan is coming. We're also told that Zach Rice is. I thought Zach actually played pretty well today. Mm-hmm. And Zach is making a push to have a chance at some point maybe to win that open guard spot because I think the offensive line as we know it right now, you got Sampson on the left side, you've got Trevion Green on the right side, you've got Lampkin at one of the guards, and you got Austin Glasky at center. I think the other guard spot is up for grabs. And when Ja'Kiah Leftwich, the offensive tackle from Georgia Tech, arrives here in about a month, he's going to be in competition for one of those tackle spots.
Definitely.
So I like the parts of the offensive line. It just, when you look at what they lost, I don't know, I put it in a piece, I don't know how many snaps, rather, but combined, and this includes the transfers, they don't even have 1,000 career snaps. except Willie Lampkin, who was a stud at Coastal Carolina and started last year. Everybody else combined on 1,000 snaps, so there's a lot of uncertainty there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. Just one thing on Zach Rice, I'm glad you mentioned him because I was watching him a little bit in the practice before the scrimmage. And side note too, I've noticed on his Instagram story a couple times that even during the spring, he's posted some stuff on his story doing like an individual workout with like a trainer or somebody that he has. And a lot of it is like technique based is what I've seen. And it was funny today because he was kind of off on his own when he wasn't doing reps in the practice. And the first thing he does is he walks over and he gets in the stance and he's practicing it's not necessarily, he's not going against anybody. He's just practicing the technique that comes along with playing that position. So I even noticed that today. It seems, I don't know if it's a new, sense of focus there, but even I'm glad you brought that up as somebody who's making maybe that push to be potentially getting that rotation and maybe vie for a starting spot because I'm seeing that with some of the off-field stuff that I'm seeing from with some of the extra work he's putting in, seeing that on social media with some of the technique work that he was doing out there. He's the only offensive lineman I saw do that in practice, just working on his technique when he wasn't taking snaps. He wasn't just standing there. So again, it would be interesting to see if he can make a push and get into that rotation next season because the intangibles were there out of high school. Super highly rated kid, smart kid, big kid. I mean, he looks like, I think everybody thought he would maybe have played played more than he has by now. Maybe the light finally clicked this spring, and he's a guy we see kind of jump his way into the rotation. I think the opportunity's there when you look at the lack of snaps. I mean, anybody should be. I think this spring and going into fall camp, it shouldn't be a lockdown position group, in my opinion, because of the lack of experience there. It should be whoever's impressing the most in practice should get a shot to at least be in the rotation and potentially start. So be interesting to see how that line shakes up, AJ, because again, it's been a question mark. Both lines have been a question mark really in the Mac Brown 2.0 era. Well, and when you look at the lack of experience there, I can't sit here and be like, well, the offensive line should be a lot better than they were last year. I mean, it's just, how can you say that when you look at the lack of, reps there?
With respect to Zach, I was told by somebody in the program, very, very well sourced, that one of the issues with him was transitioning to college football at this level, because in high school, he played private school, high schools from Lynchburg, Virginia. He's playing against a lot of guys that are 185, 190. He's just throwing them around like rag dolls. And one of the biggest adjustments for linemen at both levels, but especially on the offensive line, they go to college and they can't just throw guys around. Mm-hmm. They have to develop technique. They have to learn how to play the position properly. And sometimes they've never done that until they arrive. I'm not saying Zach didn't. You and I saw him at a camp in Virginia a couple years ago, and he was a guard in high school, and then tackle and guard, and he looked pretty good pulling. Yeah, and I thought, man, this guy looks like he's got some nice skills, but it wasn't. He had enough. He's probably impressing someone doing a drill you're going to do fundamentally sound, but in a game he didn't have to. He would just throw guys around. It was a significant adjustment for him to come to college, learn how to do everything the right way every time. Otherwise, you're going to get beat on every snap. And I think that's been part of his process so far. And I'm telling you, I'm being told, we're hearing both on the record and otherwise that he's coming. He's making a push. And that's good because he's still got plenty of time to play. Not everybody's going to be great overnight. Everybody has their different process and different path and different timetable. And Carolina fans that have been complaining about the coaches, blaming the coaches that Travis hadn't done this and Zach hadn't done that. Well, we've given you two very understandable explanations for why it's taken both a little while to get to this point. Mm-hmm. And now we're seeing Travis, who's further ahead of his spot than Zach is, but we're seeing Zach really make up ground right now. So we'll see what happens during the course of the year. I think that one guard spot is wide open. Mm-hmm. And I personally believe that that McGowan may end up having a nod because Adorno's always been sort of a reserve. McGowan's a guy who was pretty well regarded when he came in. I think they would like to see someone break free and win it that way instead of settling on somebody. Adorno's the one with some experience, but his experience is usually replacing someone who was hurt. And so we'll see. I think Zach, if he continues to do what he's done, will have an opportunity. You say the opportunity was there, the door was open. Well, he's got to go through that door. Yeah. The door's open. It's there. It's his responsibility right now to go through it. So I don't think the offensive line is terrible. I think the offensive line is very much a work in progress. And Randy Clements has a pretty good resume, pretty good history of building offensive lines. And there are some parts there for sure. So we'll see what they're like. They need to get pretty good quickly because August 28th, they're going to get harassed by Minnesota's defense. Minnesota made Drake look pretty normal at times last year. So, and this one's going to be on the road. So that's going to be a huge game, huge opener on the road for this group. So I know spring practice just ended, but they'll take a few weeks off and then get right back at it.
Yeah. Last thing real quick, and we'll head out. Special teams. Whew. I think it's safe to say special teams is a concern right now because, Noah Burnett, who was pretty good last year, missed a couple easy field goals today. You're like, what's going on with him? Punting, I know Max talked a lot about what the heck's going on with the punting situation. I know more starters are going to play at special teams when it comes down to it. I know we didn't see a lot of special teams like punts today, for instance, but based on what we've seen in the spring, based on what we saw today, based on what we heard, I still think it's safe to say that I don't know if anybody really knows what that special teams is going to look like, man. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think people should trust Noah Burnett. Liam Boyd also missed one of those, but they were kicks in the mid upper 40s.
Yeah, Burnett was good. I don't want to read too much into that. I do think they have an issue at punter.
And Max said the other day that they're looking for a preferred walk-on punter in the portal, and they have a freshman coming in. So they have someone coming in. Tom McGinnis has struggled. I was at practice a week and a half ago, and I almost got hit by one of his punts. And I was at the first practice, I almost got hit by one of his punts. I almost got hit by something else, too, which I'll save for the next one.
Yeah, we'll talk about the other one. Yeah.
I think that they're going to get into the portal, and they need to find a punter. They need to they need a little bit more help. They'll take an offensive lineman. Also, remember the kid from Muhlenberg College is coming in as well for the offensive line. So, but they're looking for a lineman in the portal. They're looking for a running back. They're looking for a linebacker. They're looking for a quarterback again. I did a drop on that the other day. If you haven't listened, you should, because I'm not going to go back over all that in the pod that you and I do. But they are looking for a quarterback, and I think that they're open-minded to what's out there.
Yeah, be interesting to see. Interesting offseason ahead. It always is with this transfer portal stuff going on. So make sure you guys keep it locked to TarLillustrated.com. I think it's a good place to wrap this one up, kind of talking about what we can take away, hit on offense, defense, special teams a little bit. Again, we'll do a separate pod on the quarterbacks. It'll come out a little bit later on this one. And AJ, maybe we'll sprinkle a Harrison Ingram basketball podcast in a little bit later, too. Who knows? We were on a roll right
now. With a football backdrop, huh?
Yeah, I know, right?
We couldn't do one earlier because it happens. I get it up. Then we get a football commit, and I had to race here.
Yeah, I was getting ready to leave. I left like about 30 minutes after to come there, to get some food and come here. I left about 30 minutes after the news came out. So we'll do a little short podcast on that and kind of what that means for I might make you walk over to the Smith Center to do that one. So
no.
See if you can sneak in there and get a nice Smith Center backdrop.
No, that ain't happening. Steve will get mad. Huber will be over there. Brad Frederick was here, by the way. I saw him.
Oh, wow. Interesting. A little basketball scene. Nice, man. Nice. Checking out the football.
I got to do a Harrison. I should say, I got to do a Harrison pod. You got to get your keys to the deal.
Yeah. You would
I'll make Jacob happy.
Get him a guest appearance on the pod, maybe. Give us some real intel on what went down with that. But, yeah, keep it locked. We'll have some more pods coming out about football and, again, basketball, too. So, yeah.
By the way, when we get into the summer and we'd like to have some fun, have me tell the Vince Carter Brad Frederick story.
Okay, yeah. I think I've heard it. I don't remember, but it rings a bell. It rings a bell. I think I've heard it before. We'll do that.
Yes, I have a Vince Carter Brad Frederick story.
That's got to be an interesting one right there. I'm looking forward to hearing that. Keep it locked to Tar Illustrated. We'll do that at some point this offseason. All right, guys, I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Spring takeaways. What can you take away in this one? If you're optimistic about the team, go ahead and like the video below. If you were at the spring game, like the video below. Decent crowd there. I mean, for Carolina spring game, it was pretty typical in terms of the crowd there. And again, a beautiful day on the hill for it. So appreciate y'all watching as always. Go check out the highlights video from today as well. And then obviously TarIllustrated.com for all your post game. I don't know if is it post game? Is that the right way to say it after? I guess it is a spring game.
Well, it's called a spring game. So
it's post game coverage from today's spring game. We appreciate y'all as always, and we'll see y'all next time. Thanks.